Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview special of the SWW show. This is the first one I'm going to say. I'm going to call it post-quarantine edition interviews because I live in Florida, and Florida is basically done with all levels of quarantine since even Disney announced when they're opening. So I'm going to stick with that one. Maybe for the rest of you, you might still be in quarantine. And, yeah, we're just going to go on from that one. Anyway, I'm Mike. Today with me, I have a special guest. So could you please tell me your name and the game we're here to talk about?
Hello, I am Andreas Dilling, and I'm the developer of Beyond the Underworld.
So, Beyond the Underworld. Immediately, do you mind giving us whatever your 30-second elevator pitch of this game is?
Okay, yes. So the game is pretty much where you wake up as a girl, and you do not know why you're here or where you are, but you are in the afterlife. But again, you don't know where you are. So in the game, you pretty much just go around these surreal worlds, which have a lot of focus on surreal plant life, and you find little hints on pretty much what your past life was like and kind of how you got here.
So, obviously, this is a... How did you, want to... Is something that, triggered this want to make this kind of game? Is there something in there? Because obviously, immediately, it's a very interesting game, and even visually, I'd say it's a very unique-looking game.
Yes, so I've kind of had this, funny thing. First, the idea just started out when I was making 2D games on an old engine, and I always had this idea for, a blue hub world, and that's the hub world in the game, and then as I began developing, I had these new ideas for, these new landscapes, and I just kept kind of thinking of what would work, especially with different color schemes, and I kind of just developed it off that. So, in short, I had an idea for one level, and that level turned into a game, and that game had more levels like this, if that made any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Again, so one of the things that drew me to immediately when I was looking at games, and I emailed you, was this you have this very contrasty, fluorescent look to the game. So, So as you said, obviously, you always had this kind of image in your head of something akin to it. Is this,
Yes.
Is your background, art to kind of do this? Or is it just kind of a thing you're I just want to see if I can make a game that just looks like this?
Of course, many developers who make these kind of weird games like this often are, or surreal games like this are often inspired from Journey. And, so right now, I kind of just want to make, a nice, wordless, surreal game. And one thing I love is surreal nature. And there's not a lot of okay, so you know the movie Avatar, the good one. The world is so focused on nature. There's so many weird little things that was created in this world, and you don't really find that many movies or media sources that have this type of, I guess, vibe to it. So I just kind of wanted to kind of create my own atmospheric little. Yeah, a more atmospheric kind of world.
That's so... I've got to ask then, because obviously the giant constraint, and I think Journey's obviously the prime example of dealing with this constraint, as you mentioned, is storytelling without there being vocals or subtitles or, a direct direction. So what were your kind of ways to kind of go through this and be I want the player to go to A from B, but I want them to know I'm leading them to A to B?
Well, the thing is, because funny thing, Beyond the Underworld is actually my first 3D game, so there were a lot of challenges and a lot of things I learned as I was making the game. So, and I didn't really, since it was my first 3D game, this was the first big game I made with with Unreal Engine. So I didn't know everything about the engines. So one thing I did was I had, of course, players going from to A to B. The first few levels are more atmospheric, so there isn't very much storytelling. And what I wanted to do is, there are these little things you can find during the levels. They kind of give you hints. Like I mentioned earlier about the game, it gives you hints to the past. And what I wanted to happen is that players kind of can figure out, or kind of, they have the puzzle pieces and they might be able to put it all together. One thing that I tried to do this with was the dream levels. I'm not sure if you remember this from the trailer, or it's very specific, but kind of a black level with all these glowing flowers. Those
Okay.
were levels that gave you like very little hints about the past life. And then as you moved on in the game, there were like these illusions and more these kind of events that gave you more hints. So what I'm trying to say is, I gave little puzzle pieces, and then the players could in a way figure that out.
That's so. I just go back to because it's obviously when from a developer point of view, it's we always talk about like when developers, it's the end product is really obvious. Like obvious this was the answer, but like in the moment it's really not obvious. So I'm curious
Yeah.
if you don't mind opening the can of worms or going back in time kind of. So you obviously have some level of this product now that you figure out how to make that transition in it. How obvious or how bad were some of your early prototypes of getting players to kind of understand what was happening?
Well, one of those things was like the main gameplay mechanic, because many games like these are walking simulators, and do you know the call system from Journey, like the little sphere that comes out of the player? What I wanted to do was that, but I spoke with another developer who actually worked for that game company, and they told me that if I do that, I could get sued. So that, of course, kind of put a halt on that. Until he said that another game company had a similar interaction mechanic, but they had like a loophole. It was a game about a deer, and the little call system came from the deer's antlers and not the deer itself. So by that logic, I had my interaction mechanic, like I actually did add the tether with just a different color, except I made it come from the robe of the player and not the actual player itself. To say like, oh no, it's not the player making the noise or making this call. It's, let's say, this magical robe, because it's the afterlife. You can do a lot with that. So of course, when people first saw trailers or at least a few trailers and some screenshots, they were a bit confused because I had never really showed this interaction mechanic. They were wondering, is this a walking simulator? Is this more of an interaction type of game? So they were a bit confused about that, which is something I learned, of course, from my later projects. So the early prototypes, I guess, it was literally just walking. There was no other mechanics. You walk from A to B, you hit a trigger box, and that trigger box does something. That's kind of what the earlier game was like. And another stupid thing I really did was I made the levels first without thinking of what was going to happen in those levels. So I went back and added more things to those levels. And then, of course, at the end, I thought I could have done a lot more with this, but at least I have the experience now. So I just did kind of things out of order. Let's just say that.
So I'm going to make the obvious assumption that next time your goal will be to not make things out of order.
Oh, yes, that will definitely be my goal.
So as we kind of talk about this, then obviously, because we keep pointing Journey, because I think it is the pristine prime example of akin thing in similar genre. What other games did you look at kind of as kind of your inspiration for this?
One of my biggest inspirations besides Journey was another game called First Tree, which also was very simple. There wasn't a lot of interaction. A story was told as you walk through the game. You could do some other things like digging, and I think that's it. The game didn't have that much interaction, but it did it so well because the visuals drove so many people in. It had a very clean trailer, and it was marketed very well for a game that was, I wouldn't say simple because there was a good amount of work put into the game, but I definitely many times I was just looking at the trailer and saying, okay, this is a very simple game. What does this developer do so right with what he has to work with? So there was that, and there was also a mobile game by the same company who made Journey called Sky. And of course, I can't make Sky. That game has a lot of it has a team behind it, and I'm one person. So of course, I look more at how they made the worlds instead of how they made the overall game itself. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Wait, did I even say that? I don't think I said the name of the game. Sky, Children of Light, and then the First Tree. So those were my two biggest things I looked at.
Children of the Light, I think, is very interesting because obviously it's such a different game, and I assume it's much more of the art akin and some of the more elegant features of that. Because again, it's Children of the Light, if I'm correct, that's an RPG here, and with this obviously is not.
I don't think Children of the Light is an RPG, but it could be considered it. It might. It is. Actually, maybe it is. I mean, actually, never mind. I think it could be considered one.
Okay, so one of the things I find very interesting about your game is this whole thing of like you're in early access, and I would not expect this type of game to be in early access.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, kind of your thought process on why you're in early access. Like what is to you the goal of early access? Is obviously a lot. It's to improve the game's community, work on them. Kind of like what are your focus points on it?
Well, since as I mentioned earlier, this is my first 3D game, and this is also my first Steam game. So I also don't play a lot of games on Steam. So Steam is something that was a bit new to me. I didn't really know how much worked, and also a big focus for the game was optimization, since I didn't really know optimization that well. So I wanted to get that tested out in early access. And when I actually launched early access, I got a lot of bug reports, and there were even a few times where players couldn't progress in a level. So it was kind of to understand what to look for in the future, and of course just to know the Steam platform of how, what your layout should be, and how they actually upload. To actually make sure that my files actually worked, since Steam's upload system is a bit outdated. Let's just say that.
That's very interesting. So now that you're in the process, then obviously since it's changed, has there been some level of focus to you then kind of during this process before you release to what you consider the akin final version?
When you say that, do you mean like what is my focus different now?
Yeah, like are you focusing on just bug squashing? Are we focused on like if I launch the game now in 2 months, is it going to be a completely different experience?
Okay, I see. I think I see what you mean. It has changed a bit because before my main focus was getting this game to run well on most PC platforms, and now after it's out, I noticed that okay, there's a lot I need to fix, and there is a lot of things that when I tested it, it worked, but when other players tested it, it didn't work. So that was so it went from optimization to bug fixing. But I didn't actually expect my game to have that many bugs, but it did. That's just game development.
Wait, are you implying to me that one PC is not the same as the 10,000 PCs out there?
That could be the thing. I actually wasn't completely sure what some of the issues was just me missing something, and other issues was just, wait, why did this happen? And I actually don't really have an answer about what the issue was. So when it comes to optimization, yes, but from gameplay, I don't fully know. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So, kind of as we get to the tail end of this, then, what is kind of like the theme or feature you really want people to kind of walk away from this, kind of like being really excited to when they play your game to kind of know about?
Really the atmosphere, because that's the things I've gotten the most compliments about. Some people would say, could have used a bit more gameplay, but again, the music and the atmosphere is something that just seems to be the biggest strength. So I'd like for players to kind of immerse themselves in that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Looking at when we were talking, I have kind of like screenshots of my second monitor kind of going up there looking at it at a time. Like, there's something really visually appealing about this game, and like obviously I like it's visually appealing. I think it's really cool about it is you have such a unique abstract-y look, but it's not like it's an abstract game, but it's very much a like with concrete things. It's not like I go in a painting and see abstract art. This is more of a like the idea and the essence of abstractness versus direct abstract.
Yeah, I like that. I like that wording that you put, because it's not like completely random and out of the place like you're on LSD, but it is different from something that you would usually see outside, because it is focused more on nature.
Perfect. So let's see if I get this right. The game is Beyond the Underworld. You're currently in Steam Early Access. The game is currently $14.99. Is that the plan for the game when it hits its full release also?
Actually, one thing I actually do want to say, I am actually going to be lowering the price tomorrow, and I've been wanting to lower the price since it's an early access. It's just Steam doesn't let you unless the game's been out for like a month.
Okay, so what is the new price going to be for everyone?
$9.99.
So it's $9.99. It's on Steam. Is it also on itch, I believe?
I wasn't going to put it on itch, but there are some issues with this file size. But I'm still looking into that. But currently, Steam is the main platform.
Perfect. So Steam, $9.99, itch, TBD, and the game is, as we said, Beyond the Underworld. I believe your what is your Twitter, social media, all that fun stuff I want to find?
Oh yes, my Twitter is at, there's gonna be a lot of numbers, A3654058, and then my main social media would be Instagram, which would be at peacock_games.
So I've got to ask, final question for you is there any significance to those numbers, or do you just kind of put in a generator?
Funny thing, this actually wasn't my game dev Twitter. I did make a Twitter, and that was my tag. And then, since I never really posted on Twitter, I just converted it to my game dev account. So, and all those numbers, that has to do with just my. It's a long story, but let's just say I thought a tag meant something different, and then that tag, which were all the numbers, just became something I put in. Sorry, that probably didn't make a lot of sense.
No, that trust me, we all have those weird names. I was just very curious because obviously it's such a different thing, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, again, thanks for sitting down to talk to me, and I look forward to seeing how the game proceeds from here.
Awesome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of these fun interview episodes of the SWW show. I'm sticking with these are post-quarantine because I live in Florida, and we're basically out of quarantine, so we're going to go with that to keep my sanity completely in check. Anyway, I have with me a special guest today. Sir, could you please tell me your name and the game we're here to talk about?
My name is Rob Chinnery, and I'm here to talk about War Saber.
So, War Saber, as we'll get to in a second, I like to nicely say you found a way to combine fencing with being a Jedi. Do you mind giving us maybe an elevator pitch of the game?
Sure. I mean, I think the simplest way to explain it, that people that have experience with VR games would understand, is to say it's sort of a combination of Blade and Sorcery and Beat Saber. It really the game is centered around the slicing mechanic that you would see in Beat Saber, but applied to a combat scenario like you might experience in Blade and Sorcery.
Okay, yeah, actually, that is probably a good comparison factor. I still like my suggestion because everyone likes the idea of holding a lightsaber. So
yes,
I assume I'm not that far off. Then you've probably seen that or a combination of Beat Saber to come up with the idea for the game.
Sorry, say that again?
I was going to say, so what is, I assume your inspiration for the game is kind of like that kind of general line we just kind of came from, though, where you like Beat Saber, or I assume you have to, in some cases, either like fencing or Jedis or something for the idea of this game?
Yeah, so, from playing Beat Saber to Blade and Sorcery to even the Vader Immortal games, obviously the lightsaber mechanic is very popular in VR, but I didn't really think that any of those games really captured, what you would expect that to feel like. So I applied it to, kind of a more intense combat situation where you can actually slice enemies and where your sabers actually collide, and it's actually difficult. I don't know if you've played the Vader Immortal, but there's not really a lot of actual lightsaber combat in that, or any other games that along those lines.
No, that's a very, I think, solid critique of even before that there was those Star Wars demos that they gave you a fake lightsaber that you realized was fake the entire time, and that's when you realize that, it's for sure the most disappointing part, because you're like, but you gave me a lightsaber and it actually does nothing.
Exactly. I mean, I think all it really does in those games, for the most part, I think, is deflect blaster lasers, and I don't know. I don't think that's that fun of a mechanic, especially when you have all the potential of that weapon.
I think it can be fun, but I agree with you. I think the problem with them is if I don't deflect, then it doesn't matter, and I think that's where the disconnect really comes in. We're like, so you kind enough to give me a codes for the demo of this game, and here, if I mess up, something happens. That's an immediate level of at least there is some level of a concern, or I have to do something.
Exactly, and there's a little more variety to it as well. I mean, if you've deflected one blaster, I think you've kind of deflected them all. Not that it's not that there's no fun involved in that, but I think it kind of gets old, and you, especially when you want to take it to the next level of what you've seen in movies and in other games and stuff like that, where you actually want to be hitting another saber and slicing stuff up.
So I've got to ask then, because VR is obviously like, I'd still consider it a newer medium. I'm not gonna say it's like uber new anymore, but it's still a newer medium. So is this kind of your first experience really making something for VR, or as like, have you done one before, kind of?
This is my first full PC VR game. I've done some little like Oculus Go experiences. I've done some like commercial projects for demos and things like that. But this is my first actual PC VR, I would say, like higher end experience.
Interesting. So I've poked with the Go also, and so how freeing is it when you went from the Go to something that actually hold more than 2 megabits of memory?
Yeah, well, I mean, aside from just that, also the room scale and having multiple controllers. I mean, there's so many things. That also obviously adds complexity. There's a lot more like problems to deal with and things that need to be considered when developing. But it's definitely it's a different kind of development experience. You're obviously developing for a different audience, and there is just a lot more you can do. So it definitely feels freeing from a creative perspective in terms of being able to do kind of anything that your mind can come up with. But I think Oculus Go development also has its appeal as well. I mean, you kind of it's almost like a puzzle sometimes, trying to figure out how to fit all the interactions and things like that that you want into that platform.
Oh yeah, no, that is I think a very valid complaint about just the idea of how tight it is in Oculus Go. But I'm curious, so did you have, because I'm almost assuming you did, you had to have some level of like choice paralysis once you realized how relatively open the platform is comparatively?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's definitely a very different experience, and this is the first thing I've developed for that. So there's a lot of ideas and stuff that it's hard. I think it's hard to control all the ideas that you have, especially when you kind of have unlimited ability to implement anything. But with this game, I think the kind of the theme and the setting and everything that I chose allows me to really implement a lot of different ideas and kind of still have them fit with that core theme. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to pick something that I could really just throw every kind of crazy idea, and especially being an early access game, I can experiment with a lot of things that might not even end up working or making it into the final full release, and and I can get feedback on those pretty quickly.
So let's jump into it. I think mechanically is where your game is very interesting, because we talk about you do more than just the idea of just I have a lightsaber, go beat someone with it. It's there's even a level of even you showed in the trailers and advertising of you can interact with environmental pieces and stuff too. I'm curious what your thought process was of the line you want the player to interact with the environment versus just being this one-on-one sword-to-sword fight.
Yeah, definitely. That's a major thing that I'm still working on. There's actually some environment interaction that I took out before the game entered early access, just because I still need to work on. You don't want players to be able to just break the game at any point, but I do want them to be able to experiment with things that even maybe I didn't anticipate. So now there is a level of environment interaction. You can slice, say street lights and signs and trees, stuff like that in the environment. You can slice up. You can pick them up and kind of do things with them. It's still a little buggy because obviously there are a lot of different interactions that it's hard to plan for all of them. But in the future, I'd really like to implement more of that in a way where you can really modify the environment just by slicing things apart. For example, I had in an earlier build that I will re-implement. I get some bugs worked out of it. There's multi-level kind of destroyed parking garage looking buildings, and you could actually slice the columns holding up multiple levels and cause them to collapse on top of enemies and stuff like that. So that's the kind of interaction that I definitely want players to be able to engage with going forward.
That's interesting. I find it's always a fun balancing. Whenever I talk to developers, especially like smaller games or like team size, it's always an interesting balancing act of the level of when they decide mechanically a game is done. Because obviously you want to, in a perfect world, you'd want almost everything interactable, but that's just not possible, right? Because you have time constraints, you have just sane being constraints of wanting a game out there.
Exactly, and also I don't want to put something out there that it might be fun, but also it can kind of break the game and cause an unpleasant experience, especially in VR when if there's severe issues, you could have people getting sick and stuff like that. So it's kind of been a balance of what I can ship right now that's also going to be appealing and not give a bad impression.
Mm-hmm. So have you actually? So while you're developing, I assumed because obviously now you're in early access. Even while you're developing, you probably had some level of people playing it or messing with it. How has that been? Kind of like watching people go into VR, like motion sickness, all those fun like technical constraints we have to deal with of like people in VR.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely it's a lot of fun to watch people play. I've had some players pretty much when they buy it they'll message me on Discord and say, hey, do you want to watch me play, especially because they know it is pretty in a pretty early state right now, and even when they do encounter bugs, it's actually kind of fun, especially because sometimes that adds to this sort of like excitement of the game, and you might see a ragdoll flying around or something, and it kind of makes for a cool visual, but obviously it is something that is nice for me to see so that I can address. But it's also great for me to get feedback on control schemes, especially. I'm right-handed, and the way that I designed the game, I mean, it felt natural to me. But then, once I see a lot of players playing, they say, "Oh, it feels like handed like control setup," and I think that's mostly based on just the way that many other games are set up. But I've definitely gotten a lot of feedback that it would have been kind of impossible for me to find without a player base that's telling me and showing me playing this.
So I'm actually curious about that because I'm right-handed also, so I don't think I would have thought of it. What was the big complaint about left-handed? Was it just if you use your left hand, it was just impossible kind of hit things?
So no, I think the main reason for that is that the like free locomotion is mapped to the right controller, and then turning is mapped to the left. And I know most games it's the opposite. Like I said, I don't know for me, but maybe it's just from developing it so much and not having other perspectives, it kind of it didn't really feel any different to me. But I know if you've been playing game after game where the actual movement is mapped to the left and the turning is mapped to the right, I can see how that would feel kind of off at first. I have had players though who initially said that, then come back later and say, well, actually after playing for a little, it feels right now. But I think at first, just because it is different from a lot of the other popular games, it feels a little off.
Mm-hmm. No, then that makes sense. It's like so in the beginning, I think this is one of the problems with VR as it's starting to mature is we always talk about like if I hand the average person Xbox controller and say play this game, there's some level of assumptions they make. When we first introduced VR, we got to basically make up those assumptions as we went along, but now kind of as time goes on, people who experience VR, I feel like have now those same assumptions that they had with like picking up a controller.
Exactly, especially like your hardcore VR players that that play hours per day. They play more than I do, so they're going to have more familiarity with one set of controls. And something other than that's definitely going to feel off to them. So that was definitely something interesting and something that I'm going to be implementing a fix for with whether it's just a different Steam VR input mapping or something in game to switch it, but it's definitely something that I'll be addressing based on that feedback.
So one of the other things I want to touch on, as I like to touch on with every person I talk to who makes VR games, so obviously you're going into we'll say a very tight market. I think this is the proper term compared to like the general PC market or general console market. How has that changed kind of your expectations of like either sales trajectory of the game, or how has that changed even like how you think the reach is physically possible and stuff?
Obviously developing for PC VR specifically, you're not going to see the kind of sales numbers or you would even on, say Oculus Quest or PlayStation VR. And I think, you have to go into it knowing that. For me, as just an individual developer, it's not a huge issue because it's not like I'm pouring millions into the game with staff of 50 plus people and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty free to do that. I know for larger companies, it's difficult for them to justify spending AAA game development money on a game that's audience is relatively small. But I don't need to see a huge audience for this. I kind of build it for something that I would play and that's fun for me. And if other people enjoy it, then great. But that's not a huge concern for me. And I mean, in the future, I definitely have experimented with some Oculus Quest development in PlayStation VR. So in the future, if I was looking to really reach like a larger audience, I'd probably go down that road. But for this game, I was really just looking to kind of push the limits visually and even with physics and stuff like that. So that was never I was never really thinking like, oh, let me make this as accessible as possible on all platforms.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. I always argue. I argue personally that the indie game rule should always be assume you're going to fail and make a game that you want to play, because just the indie game market is very rough in general, just because how many there are out there.
Exactly. I mean, at least the one benefit with VR, you have less games coming out than on non-VR platforms, but you also have a much smaller audience. So, but it is. I mean, even without really any kind of like marketing or anything, you do get noticed at least at launch. You get some exposure. That new and upcoming list on Steam. It's not like it's just bombarded with hundreds of titles per day. So there is that benefit.
So actually, you kind of touched on this. So do you feel? Because personally, unless you're going to tell me otherwise, your game I think looks cool and it looks strong. I just didn't feel like it was uber processing intense. Do you feel something like the Quest is like a future point of the game you might try for? Or do you feel this is home on more of the desktop PC VR market?
I know with other projects, that's always kind of in the back of my mind, like, oh, let me make sure that this can run on Quest in the future. With this one, I would say no, just because, there are certain things where, at least right now, you're just thinking, well, I just won't be able to do this on Quest, and I don't want to limit myself. You don't want to limit a feature for PC users that might be really cool just because, you want to be able to port it to Quest later. So with this game, I would say no. Just some of the post-processing, some of the physics, stuff like that. It's just and I know a lot of people have requested, oh, is there a Quest version coming? Could it come on Quest? Probably not. I mean, if it did down the line, if there was enough demand for that, it would have to kind of be probably a different game, and which I think you've seen some developers do, where they kind of come out with like a light version of their game that's the same kind of design themes and stuff like that, but it's not the same game, just because you can't really take everything and necessarily squeeze it down into a Quest form.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think Robo Recall is the biggest example. If you look at the Quest version versus the desktop version, I don't even know how we define those as the same game. Just because they're the same game and it may look similar, but it is so not. And it's funny because you think because it was Epic, it would have the biggest line possible of being able to handle on both.
Exactly. I think it was a different developer for the Quest version as well.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that.
not positive.
And I think that'd be a fine example of what you're talking about, of we all think they could run everything, but it kind of isn't there. And
you probably could take pretty much anything and squeeze it into some kind of form, but it just might not really resemble, the original game. So at that point, what's the point? If it's not going to translate well, why do it?
Mm-hmm. So as we get to the end of this, one of the things I really wanted to touch on was, so your game's in early access, kind of. And I think we've kind of touched on this on and off, because you've talked about there's maybe some instability stuff you want to poke at, kind of. What do you feel? So this, I think, is a unique game for early access, is why I'm going with this, because it's early access. I feel a lot of times you like roguelikes in early access a lot, or online shooters akin to PUBG in early access online a lot. Why early access for this type of game, which I feel is early access just feels like a bigger beta group comparatively to some level of some other games?
Yeah, I mean, going back to some of the things I touched on earlier, it's hard. I mean, in some ways, I kind of do compare it to another beta for the game. It's hard, especially as an independent developer. When you're going through testing and development with VR, it's not always easy to find a large enough audience of reliable testers, stuff like that. So putting the game out in early access is actually it's the most feedback that I've gotten, especially in the first couple weeks. As you have people buy it and say like, oh, I love it, but I have this one issue or that one issue, and I usually address those pretty quickly within a day or two via an update. But also, I wanted to give people the opportunity to buy the game, to try it, to try the combat mechanics, and as I continue to develop actual story-based content, which all of the story-based content could be a year or two down the line. But I still think that there's a lot of fun to be had just playing around in like the combat sandbox modes, and also that obviously lets me really fine tune that as I continue to develop the story-based missions as well. So I think, and if you look at the early access page on Steam, that's kind of the biggest reason that I emphasize on there is really getting those combat mechanics down before all the story-based content is implemented.
No, that makes sense. I can just from poking with that stuff, or even the idea of like you running physics in VR. I can only imagine the thousands of headaches that would take just to get it quite how you want it.
Exactly, especially when with PC VR you're dealing with so many different combinations of PC hardware and VR headsets, and this is available on so from Windows to 5 to Index to Oculus. So and I can test all of those, but I only have a couple PCs I can test on, and I don't necessarily it's hard for me to simulate the experience that every player might have. So being able to actually get those players to give me their feedback with all different setups, even just different room size and space setups, things like that, that's really helpful.
That makes sense. So as we're talking, I think it's safe to say the game's been out a little under, we're going to say about a month in early access. How has the feedback that you've received during the access, which at the time of us talking, like your Steam page is defined as mixed, which is early access game, like that stuff can change fundamentally. How much has that changed kind of like your development roadmap going forward?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's changed it too much because I pretty much anticipated most of the way that it's gone so far. I think you get a lot of people buying the game and expecting, like Half-Life or something like that, even though it's early access. I mean, I even put a free demo on the page because I want people, before they buy it, I want them to know, and I've emphasized in the description, that this is very early access. And if you're buying now, part of what you're doing is kind of participating in the development of the game. So, you get a lot of people that just ignore all that, just download and just, play for 2 minutes and then maybe write a bad review or just don't play again. But then, I would say probably get as many people that play for a while, give feedback, play the next update with that feedback implemented, get more feedback, and that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I wish you the best of luck as you continue, because I go back to physics, VR, pain in the butt. So I'm going to say God bless your soul, best of luck for trying to tackle that monster on its own. As we get to the end of this, is there anything else that you feel that like you want people to know anything about your game, kind of like as like the final taste?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I get asked constantly is about multiplayer. Obviously, everybody wants to be able to have Saber fight with their friends, chop them up and stuff like that. And it's something that going into the game, that was kind of part of my vision, was I do want to have multiplayer battles. Obviously, it's a difficult endeavor. There's a lot of networking issues and things like that need to be worked out. But I tell people all the time it's something that if it can be done, I will definitely do it. Hopefully in the near future. But I am constantly testing different approaches to that, and it's something that is definitely a priority for me to make it into the final game.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So the game is War Saber. It is currently an early access game on Steam for $20, but there's a free demo of the game.
Yep, yeah, it's $19.99, but there's a free demo available. Like I said, I want people to play it first, and it might not be for everyone. I mean, it's difficult, I would say. It is constantly changing as well, but I want to give people the opportunity to kind of always see what state the game is in before they buy it, because like I said, I really want to draw players in that want to be a part of the development of it. So,
and then then it's warsaber.com.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Rob, sitting down and talking to me, and I look forward to see how the game all turns out as your early access continues.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special segment of the SWW show. It is an interview with me, AJ. I am here with Philip and Lisa from Caligari Games, makers of Whateverland, who have a demo, I guess is the best way to describe it, releasing soon. June 10th, 12th? 10th.
Around that time, yeah.
So, early June.
Yeah, as soon as Steam approves it, I'd say.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully they, a lot of people seem to have a lot of time on their hands right now, so I'd imagine approval processes are going a little bit faster, but...
No, unfortunately, it doesn't.
Still?
Actually, it takes much more time for them to approve things, because they work from home, and the other thing that Steam cannot test Linux and Mac versions.
Oh, okay.
Because they are at home, so they check only the Windows versions of the game. But I mean, it's good to know that Steam trusts us, and they're willing to upload it without any test.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, if there's just minor things that go wrong, I mean, you're better than... I can think of a couple big games that released that just either don't work on Linux and Mac at all or had major issues. So if you can have, even if you have just a tiny little thing, you're better than
a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, better than the big boys.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
Whateverland is a point-and-click adventure game with some attitude. I guess is the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, you can say that.
I really, really like the art style of it. I mean, it's much more than the traditional point and click where they almost do like a cell shading isn't the right word, but kind of that style where it's very two-dimensional. It looks very flat.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas your guys' looks, and you have obviously the definition, the 3D effect on faces and objects and things like that, but there's also this perceived depth in the scene itself that very few, even very few 2D games in general nail that perceived depth, because that's, I'm sure any artist will, agree with this, where creating three-dimensional space in a flat image is one of the toughest things to master, and you guys seem to have at least nailed that.
But it's interesting that
all thanks to our artists.
Yeah, it is. But it's funny that you said that, because in many ways, Whateverland started as a very, I'd say abstract style project in terms of visuals, because we were drawing a lot of inspiration from cartoons like Samurai Jack, for example, which is very, very flat and very one-dimensional. But at the same time, we realized that it would be really cool to explore, what 2D could do for us, and how we could create space, not just a background, but a space where the characters existed. And yeah, it's really cool that you mentioned that, because it means that we're going in the right direction, I guess.
You're succeeding. I mean,
yeah.
That's all anyone
cool.
can ever ask for, is somebody to point out, like, hey, you nailed it. Say, your artist nailed it.
We'll tell her that. There's a lot of thought process going into the backgrounds, because essentially, when you have a game that is an adventure and that's very much story based, well, the story is pretty much all it is, except for, not all it is, but that's the most of it. And you got to do something about the space that the game takes place in. So, yeah,
for sure. With my experience of point and click adventure games, like the thing, at least for me, that makes them succeed and other ones fail is the ones that succeed, like you said, they make you feel like everything belongs. It's not just like a pristine world that the character just walks into the scene and then it's that. The scenes look like it's a world that they've been lived in. That it's like, for me, my background being film and video production, like that.
Oh, cool.
The ability to make things look lived in is really what makes TV and movies and even animated things look just real. I mean, the idea of, oh, it's this amazing kitchen that everything's spotless. No, let's be honest. Like, if you have white walls in a kitchen, they're gonna be dirty.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If you're in a city scene, there's gonna be, even if it's not a lot, there's gonna be garbage on the ground, just because that's inevitably what happens. And yeah, you guys, I'm just so enthralled with the art style of Whateverland that like this entire thing could just be me like saying this just looks.
Thanks,
I mean,
man. It's really inspiring and it means a lot to us.
Yeah,
we've been spending so much time and energy on this, so it's so encouraging to hear that you like it.
Yeah,
it really is.
And it looks like from your screens and things that we have, everything is like ready. I don't know if you guys are planning on like an early access release or not, but this looks like a game, like something that you would go to. Well, maybe not go to a store. Yeah, maybe not go to a store right now because you can't.
Oh,
but
no, it's not ready yet. It's definitely not.
At least visually, it looks like it's ready. So, and visual first impressions are things that a lot of people attach to, and at least for me personally, I am much more likely to allow something to have maybe a few rough edges, as long as what I'm looking at works. There's a lot of early access games out there that like are very early access, like proof of concept ideas. And I'm like, okay, these basic like Unity or Unreal models, sorry, I'll give you 5 minutes and that's about it. But this is definitely something that you could, I mean, anybody really could hop into this, and like I said, it visually looks like it's done. And
well, yeah, it's not done for sure.
Yeah. Maybe on the back end it's not done, but
it's not done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is,
once we will upload our demo for the public access, it will be like the prologue. It's a new thing. It's a very trending thing. We will have a prologue of our game for free, available for people to check it out. And the thing about it being ready, actually, we kind of hope that we will gain a lot of information from players after the prologue release, so that we will be able to change something for the final game based on what people think about it, about the UI design and so on.
Yeah, maybe something to do with controls and stuff. But what you said about early access, I think we would never ever go to early access with a game like Whateverland. I just think it's unfair to the players, honestly, because with a game that's supposed to be played as it's supposed to be played as a whole. Like, there's a story, right, and you gotta experience it. Sorry, as a whole, and then just giving them like, well, this is a half-baked version of it. Enjoy. Like, I wouldn't want to do that. I would want the game. Well, it doesn't feature multiplayer or anything that needs like careful tweaking and careful testing with actual people, like many games do. And I understand why they do early access, but for a game like that, like for an adventure point and click, like I think it's just idiotic, honestly, to go into early access with a half-baked game. So yeah.
For sure. I mean, For those listening, I don't know if you ever played the game, but according to Steam, this game will be similar to Firewatch, which
No.
I know. I was like,
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I don't
really
think so.
weird. Sometimes Steam makes these weird suggestions. Well, it's not really.
is this
It
game
is
relevant to you? Similar to games you've played, Firewatch.
Firewatch.
I mean,
I love Firewatch actually.
it's a
adore it.
really good game. So like,
It's a really good game.
if that's anything to go by, then Whateverland's going to be a really good game. So
No, it is. They are similar in terms of being centered around the story and things like that.
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, because also maybe like the theme of it, but Steam doesn't know the main theme of Whateverland yet. So yeah, it's a stretch. Let's say it's a stretch, and it's not 3D, and it's not really about this kind of aimless exploring and kind of, it's very different in its atmosphere, in its tone. It's a completely different game. Let's just put it that way. I hope it's as captivating and as good as Firewatch, but just thematically, it's different. It's very very different.
yeah, sometimes those relevant tags are it's a bit of a stretch, and
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And most of the time, it's pretty far from what it actually is. I'd rather compare it to other point and clicks, and maybe. Yeah, I don't even know what I would compare it to, honestly. It's
maybe Firewatch is just the game that I have the most hours on and tags that it has, and
yeah, maybe.
Maybe
I don't know.
some Steam magic.
some
Really unpredictable.
some Gabe magic in the back end.
Yeah,
That's
probably.
that's just like pulling the tags and like, okay,
Mhm.
we're gonna use our new Steam AI or whatever they're calling it.
I think it's just the story-rich tag and things like that.
Yeah,
It just-
maybe
It does
this
its
one.
magic as well. Yeah.
Cool. This is Whateverland is coming out in. It says 2020, but I won't hold you by
we
it.
think. Yeah, we think it will be the fourth quarter of the year. So probably
But yeah,
like
and even the other year. Yeah.
November-ish, December-ish, something like that.
Hopefully.
That's a good time. That's when you're supposed to have time to play video games because everybody's either home for the holidays or inside because you're underneath 5 feet of snow. So
It depends on where you are, but yeah.
Yeah.
Most places, yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
And you were mentioning, but before we started, you were going to launch a Kickstarter with this, or
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
actually planning one. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, Philip can tell you about that, I think.
Yeah, we're planning to launch a Kickstarter campaign somewhere around 10 of June, and pretty much at the same moment the prologue will be released, so that you will be able to check the game before you will actually can give us some money, hopefully. So yeah. I mean, it's the first Kickstarter in our lives, and we are doing it completely ourselves, without any additional help, without agencies or without publishers and stuff. So, I think for the game like ours, it's crucial to start building a community before the release, and the Kickstarter, in a weird way, is the best way to do it. Because all of those people who will be interested enough to give us some money to finish the game, I think with their information that they will give us after playing the demo, we will be able to make the game specifically for them. And the games as Whateverland, the adventure games, point and click games. I'm sorry. They are mostly for very specific kind of people. It's not a genre for everyone. It was somewhere around 90s, I suppose, but for now, with all those fancy games out there and the Fortnite, and the Minecraft.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah,
I don't
so
agree with that actually.
The
but
fancy games, the Fortnites. I mean,
it's not a fancy game. Yeah.
now
Well, it's not a AAA
Minecraft, I
project.
could give you Minecraft. I could give you fancy games because there's some stuff people are creating that's just incredible. But
yes.
Fortnite, I mean, it's not very fancy.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I think that.
I meant in the manner of number of people who's playing.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So the point and click genre is for a very small group of people, but those people are very, very like Hearthstone community who knows what the game should be and who really enjoys good storytelling and stuff. So, I mean, we kind of prepared for that, and I think that Kickstarter is probably the best way to have a conversation with them, to actually see what they think about our game, what they like and don't like about it.
Yeah, because it's really hard. Sometimes it's really hard to do something for a long period of time without any feedback at all. And you just kind of start wondering, like, what am I doing? Am I doing this right? Like, is anybody going to play it? Like, is anybody going to like it? Where am I going with this? Especially when writing the game like that. So yeah, we're really hoping to find these people who are going to play this game and to kind of talk to them more regularly about this stuff.
I do like that you're going the approach of you'll have a free demo to check out before the Kickstarter, before pledging to the Kickstarter, because that's my number one pet peeve with Kickstarters, excuse me, is a lot of times the demo or whatever they have that you could get right away is locked behind some tier that you have to fund, and I'm not a huge fan of that because I also don't like rescinding taking money from the Kickstarter back. I've pledged to I think 4 Kickstarters because I genuinely believed in what they were, or it was something that I really liked. And I don't want to go where, oh, I have to pledge $5. Okay, I'll pledge $5, and then pull my donation once I get the demo. Whereas you guys are, hey, there's a demo, you can check it out. You don't have to commit right away. If you like it, here's how you can help us.
Yeah, definitely. That was our approach as well. And I just, judging by myself, I've very rarely pledged to anything. It has to speak to me in a way, or at least I have to try it first. And if I like that, then the chance that I'm gonna give my money for it, then it just doubles or triples. So yeah, but it's not really. I wouldn't say that we want to launch the free demo thing just for the Kickstarter alone. It's not just for that. It's for the upcoming release of the whole game as well. I think people deserve to try it before buying it. In many situations, it would be great if all games had demos, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. I can remember when I was, let's go with 10, and every game had a demo. Or the magazines had.
Yeah, I remember that.
The magazines had demo discs, and you could try stuff, like you said, try it before you buy it, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, hey, the PlayStation 3, we're going to have demos very early on, and then no demos, and then, in a weird way, demos finally came back probably, a year to go with the PS3, then I was like, oh, cool, we're going to have demos again, and nope, and now they're coming back. Why couldn't we just have these all the time?
Well, not all of the games. Can you imagine a demo for Firewatch?
Oh, a
just
demo for
imagine
Firewatch would be the whole game. Like,
yeah, like it would be pointless. It's like you're just walking around and talking to a girl through a walkie-talkie. Like that's like, okay, I'm not gonna buy that.
Yeah.
It doesn't show you anything. So because there's not much to show gameplay wise,
Yeah,
So
that's true.
some games it just doesn't work for them. But for most of the games that definitely works.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. Narrative games, I think, would struggle with a demo because a lot of them, I mean, there's a lot of games that I've played in the past year, 18 months, where there are these narrative-based games that they're not necessarily designed for a single sitting to be played in, but they're definitely like, not necessarily play it once, but play it once and then a year down the road come back and play it again. It's not like a sports game or a Call of Duty where you're kind of incentivized to play little bits and pieces every day. So
Yeah, so you kind of can check out the mechanic of the game through demo and just realize if it's for you or not. But then, for our game, I think the demo will be really good because it's not just a demo, it's more of an actual prologue. It's the first 20 minutes or so of the game itself, and they're not going to change much. They're pretty much ready. So it's kind of like, it gives you a glimpse, it gives you an understanding of what the game is and what the story is like. And if you like it, you can decide if you like that or not. But also, it doesn't give away that much content because there's just so much content beyond the demo. And it's very introductory and in a good way, I'd say.
yeah, 20 minutes is also like the right length for demos or for just intros in general, especially in games where I'm not a huge fan of games that have a 3-hour intro where I can't, if I'm busy, like I have to keep doing that over and over again. The classic example was the intro to Nier Automata. You couldn't even what was it? You couldn't save the game in the first hour. So I think I played the first hour of Nier Automata 4 times.
Yeah, I totally see what you mean, and I've played Nier Automata, and it's just, but I'd say that you can excuse games like Nier Automata because they're just completely it's such a mindfuck of a game that it works in a strange way. It's like the Japanese people can they can just do anything they want and it works. Weirdly enough, so it's the same thing. It's a very long game, and then you have to play it 3 times to get an understanding of what the game is about. So, but yeah, I totally see what you mean. It was the same thing with Prey. I think it was a pretty long intro, not an hour, but
it was like 45 minutes. It was, it was slow. That Prey intro.
It was slow. It was pretty long and slow and kind of, and I never bought the game after it, so it wasn't the part of the game that they should have shown. I don't know. Yeah, it's a really tough question, but yeah, I think our demo and our prologue is pretty balanced in that regard.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah, well, I genuinely think so. And
we didn't have a playtest with people outside the project yet, so we don't really know how well will it work.
Yeah, but we'll see about that.
I mean, as long as it's not a complete fire, you should be fine.
Yeah. We'll see about that.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I hope everyone listening is looking forward to it. You can find the prologue on Steam June 10th. Find the entire game on Steam sometime Q4.
Someday, yeah. Someday this year. I'm pretty sure of it.
All right. I'll hold you to that. If Whateverland isn't released by December 31st, 2020, I'll send an email.
Okay.
Be like, hey.
an angry email to our no, you have to write an angry tweet and
Okay.
tag us all and be like, why is it
Just
not
use
out?
one word, like bad.
Bad
Yeah.
bitches, yeah. Well,
Considering I'm not huge on Twitter, I feel like a tweet at the end of the year where I just call somebody out will have much more emphasis than just like any other.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, it was supposed to come out earlier than that, but then, the pandemic thing happened, and we're just trying to figure that out and trying to navigate it as much as we can. And it's not, it's not easy doing all of those things that you used to do in an office, sitting with those people and kind of communicating all the time. And now we just kind of have to, outsource everything.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've definitely seen stuff where at work it would be, I can just walk over to somebody's desk and get an answer. And now it's at least a day to answer that question because it's email correspondence back and forth and nobody's ever directly at something. So it's, I'll email you a question, and then...
Yeah, we're lucky in that regard, I'd say, because we don't have to email anyone. We just call them up. We're just like, hey, it's 3 a.m. Hey, I have a question for you. Because we're kind of, we are working together and we're colleagues, but we're also play games together, and we're also as much as a group of friends and, as colleagues. So that works pretty fine, I'd say, as there's not much of a communication issue between us, which is great, because if we didn't have like a year of working together in an office prior to the pandemic, that would be a lot harder, because a lot of game devs are very, introverted people, and it's really hard to make them communicate with each other without kind of, pushing them together. Like, you have to write it yourself. You gotta do that. You gotta do this. Oh, okay. And then never doing it. So yeah.
There needs to be a service where anybody can sign, anybody that thinks they're a little too introverted to reach out to people, where it's just somebody that just bugs them. You just send the service like your cell phone number, and somebody just like mass texts you like, hey, did you ask them this? Hey, did you ask them this?
Yeah,
that's a great startup idea, actually.
All right, there we go.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
I'm gonna make my.
You want to start a business together? I know a few people.
I'm gonna make my Silicon Valley, investor startup money, because it's a service to prod introverts to do stuff.
I think it's gonna be very popular in Silicon Valley itself, actually. Probably.
Who knows? Anyway, before I give any more business ideas out there, yeah, it was great talking to you guys. And,
yeah,
thanks. It was great talking to you as well.
Yeah.
This podcast was a production of the SWW Show. To learn more, go to theswwshow.com. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at theswwshow. You can follow me at Mikey_Moni. You can follow AJ at LowSeaboard. Remember, new episodes premiere on Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time on anchor.fm/SWW and podcast services around the globe.